Namaskar and very good afternoon to all of you, my friends. Distinguished panelists on the dais, my respected Brahmachariji sitting in the audience, my revered Baron from the corporate whom I know for the last 20 years almost, Dr. Dave, and illustrious members of the audience. We have a formidable challenge. From 30 minutes, we are down to 15 minutes. Let's see if we can make up to the challenge. Meenakshi introduced myself very charitably in details. Let me give my own introduction in a different way altogether. Bill Clinton comes to India and is flying in a balloon with Atal Bihari Vajpayee. This was way back 12 years. The balloon was American technology made, remote control from the ground. Inside the balloon was a sensor which tells you exactly where you are flying in. After the discussions getting animated on issues like Gulf War, oil crisis, and similar other critical themes like Indo-Pakistan border crisis, then suddenly they find that the sensor inside the balloon is not working. Vajpayee, our then Prime Minister, stops discussion and said, sorry, I can't go on anymore. You have to find out where we are flying. I'm afraid. Clinton, as always, is very smooth and suave and said, don't worry, Prime Minister, I'll find out where we are flying. He looks down and down the road walks a man with a black suit, a hat, with a briefcase and an umbrella. Clinton shouts from top, hello, hello. And the man looks up. Yes, sir. Clinton asks, can you tell us where are we? Can you tell us where are we? The man looks up, sir, you're in a balloon. Clinton said, sorry, Prime Minister, we have to ask someone else. We cannot trust him. Why? Vajpayee asked. Clinton said, sorry, you will never trust this kind of person. Why? He's a management professor. How can you make out? 3 criteria. 1, quick solutions. Number 2, technically correct. They are in the balloon. And number 3, completely irrelevant. That's my introduction. For the last 20 years, friends, it was a long journey with human values in management, with spirituality and philosophy in the world of management. Of course, starting from the Indian and then going global. The current reality I portray in 3 T's. The first T is turbulence. We have discussed on turbulence enough since yesterday. Number 2 is transition. Transition is what we are going through right now. Where we are challenging our beliefs, where we are challenging our value systems, where we are challenging our ways of teaching. Peter Sanjoy says, it's no more teaching for us as faculties, for us also a learning. Are we ready to learn? Then we ask ourselves, what is learning? 25 years back when I was a student of IIM Calcutta, on Sunday morning when I used to come to Calcutta to my own residential home, I go out on the streets sporting the t-shirt of IIM Calcutta, and a very handsome looking tall man looks at me and says, oh, you're from IIM, so you're learning a lot. Yes, sir. So can you tell me what is learning? And I started giving him theories of learning, gathering those days. Cognitive learning, conative learning, experiential learning, action learning, what not. He said, hold on, young boy. What is learning? Tell me very simply. I was amazed. I didn't know what to say. And he said, let me tell you. And let me tell you also. 25 years back I heard this. There are 5 letters, L-E-A-R-N. Right? So, cut out the first one, L. The rest is earn. So, learning is of course earning something. And when you are studying in IIM, you of course learn to earn. And earn a lot. But it is that L that makes a difference. And what is that L? He said, earning becomes learning when you earn something with love. Are we earning it with love? Ask yourself. Before we challenge the world, before we challenge the old paradigm, we must challenge ourselves. And this comes from learning which shakes us from our own beliefs. Here is an example. Listen to this. One day a father of a very wealthy family took his son to a trip to the country with the purpose of showing how poor people live. They spent a couple of days and nights in a firm, what can be called a poor family. On their return from the trip, the father asked, "How was the trip, son?" "It was great, Dad." "Did you see how poor people live?" The father asked, "Yes, Dad." "So tell me now, what did you learn from the trip?" The father asked the son, the teacher asked the student. Okay? The son said, listen to this. "I saw that we have one dog, but they have 4. We have a pool that reaches to the middle of the garden, and they have a creek that has no end. We have imported lanterns in our garden, and they have the stars at the night. Our patio reaches out to the front yard, and they have the whole horizon. We have a small piece of land to live on. They have fields that go beyond our sight. We have servants to serve us, but they serve each other. We buy our food, they grow theirs. We have walls around our property to protect us. They have their friends to protect them." The boy's father was speechless. And the son said, "Thanks, Dad, for showing me how poor we are." Friends, this kind of challenge is important today for us teachers first to unlearn. We were discussing who's the best teacher and who's the worst teacher. Let's start with the negative. Who's the worst teacher? In the class, many people say people who don't have, teachers who don't walk their talk, who don't have character, who can't explain properly. Then one young boy, very sweet, smooth, said, no, sir. The worst teacher is one who's insensitive to the fact that he or she is boring us. What an answer. If you are giving value education, if you are introducing inputs on spirituality in management, kindly follow this. Don't bore them. Don't make it a dull input. 20 years of my experience tells me there are people with knowledge, there are people with good intentions, there are people who are great scholars, but they can't include the young people in the audience. And so, when it's a question of values discussion, when it's a question of spirituality discussion, when I look at the audience, the average age group is definitely not less than 50. Why? Ask this question. It's very important, friends, before we rush for the answers, we have to ask the right questions. 10 days before his death, Rabindranath Tagore wrote a poem. The date was 27th of July 1941. The poem reads like this. The first day's sun, the first day's sun at the new manifestation of life asked the question, who are you? There was no answer. Year after year went by, the last day's sun, the last question asks in the western seashore on the silent evening, who are you? No answer came. Does Tagore mean, the great Nobel laureate poet from India, Tagore, does he mean that he didn't find an answer? No. What he meant for us as teachers and learners, he's not going to give us the answer. He wants to ignite the questions within us. And we need to pursue with the questions throughout our life and find our own answers. Great are the students who don't like the teachers to give answers. They want to find their own answers. Mediocre are the students who want the teachers to spell out the answers and they copy in their books. The second T was transition, the third T is transformation. We had been talking about enlightenment. Transformation is about enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't happen as a light from outside. It's the glow from within. It's the flame from within. Maharajji yesterday had given us a living example of that, so I won't, nor am I competent to talk about it. But it is the glow from within. In Greece 2000 years back, rather 2500 years back, in the streets of Athens, the great philosopher Diogenes was holding a lantern in broad daylight in the marketplace, looking at people. A young boy goes and asks, "Sir, what is wrong with you? Why are you using a lantern to look at people when there is sunlight?" The old man looks at him and says, "Among crowds of people, my dear young boy, I'm trying to find a human being." It's the search for the human being, my dear young friends, that begins the search for values, the search for spirituality. The Latin word spiritus, which is the basis of spirituality, means breath. So if you are charging your inputs with breath, with life, with blood, then only it becomes living to the people. Otherwise it's dull and boring, and the audience cross-section will be plus 60. Spirituality will be reduced to a post-retirement exercise. Communication is extremely important. Not your knowledge only. Communication of values. Not your knowledge only. Not your good intentions only, but communication requires you have to come to the same platform, understand the minds of the people to whom you are communicating, to whom you want to transform. Otherwise, you may communicate A, he will understand B, and he will act upon C. Okay, listen to this. Real life example. You all know that story. I'm talking to my young friends at the back. They are more important for me. The story about the shepherd boy and the wolf. The shepherd boy is to graze the sheep and shout, "Wolf, wolf." Every day he will do that. Villagers will come, no wolf. And finally one day the wolf comes, he shouts, but no one comes to help from the village because they know that he's a liar. And the wolf does havoc. What is the learning? It's a value story. The first story of Aesop's fables. Remember? We learn from that, always speak the truth, never tell a lie. This story was told to a boy, young boy in IIM Calcutta, professor's son, who was studying in class 2 sometime back in 1996. And he was asked, what is the moral of the story? He said, "Sir, there was a problem in the very beginning. You should not have sent that shepherd boy to graze the sheep." Why? What is your problem? "No, sir, you cannot do it today because the United Nations has banned child labor." Actual fact of life. Unless you know the 21st century mind, you cannot communicate values to them. This is an example of the 21st century mind. The next story is about the same story, shepherd boy and the wolf. But this particular example about United Nations has banned child labor was narrated in a seminar communication on seminar on communication, which was held in Pune, where this story was narrated, why communication fails, to demonstrate this. In the tea break, a teacher from Punjab comes and says, "Don't worry, my friends from abroad, I will explain this in English also. First I'll give it in Hindi, Hindi has a real flavor." The teacher from Punjab comes and says, "Sir, मैं भी ये कहानी ट्राई किया था पंजाब के गांव में, मेरा एक्सपीरियंस कुछ दूसरा है." "Sir, I have tried the same story in my Punjab village," Punjab, you know, in the west of India. "My experience is somewhat different." What is your experience? आपका क्या experience है? "मैं ये कहानी सुनाया बच्चा को, पंजाब के गांव में, मैं शिक्षक हूं, I also told the same story because I am their teacher. And asked what is the moral of the story, पूछा क्या सीखा आपने? बच्चा ने जवाब दिया, सर अब तो हमको बहुत क्राइसिस में डाल दिया. सर यू हैव पुट मी इनटू अ लॉट ऑफ क्राइसिस. व्हाई? क्यों? वो देखो सर, जितने बार वो लड़का झूठ बोला था, सब उसको सहारा देने आया था. आए कि नहीं बोलो? Each time the boy lied, people came for help. अरे एक बार मजबूरी से सच बोला था, कोई सहारा देने नहीं आया. Once under severe compulsion, he had to speak the truth. Life and death situation, no one came to help. तो आप बताओ मैं जिंदगी में क्या करूं, सच बोलूं या झूठ बोलूं? You are my teacher, you please tell me, what do I do? Should I speak the truth or should I lie? Now friends, as teachers who are engaged in pedagogy, of values, of spirituality, if we say that this boy from Punjab is a gone case, then it's not his problem, it's my problem. Because I am unable to understand the mind, the alert and alive mind of the 21st century, which is thinking 40 years beyond me. I am falling back. Remember them. To make this, kindly make this journey interesting, relevant, creative. Then only you will be able to engage the students. In order to do that, the first and the only criteria for you as a teacher, for me as a teacher, is I must find it interesting. I must find it a creative journey. Otherwise, I will never be able to communicate to the others in a way it is creative. Yesterday, Dr. Dave was speaking about there is no as such binary departure between materialism and spiritualism. It's such an important observation today. Even truth. Swami Vivekananda says, we don't proceed from falsehood to truth. We only proceed from lower truth to higher truth. So there are different layers of truth. This is a story which is shared in a UN forum on truth, 2003 in Germany. This is an Indian story, and that's why we are Indians. See the greatness. We have been talking about Gita, we have been talking about so many things, Upanishads, we have been talking about Sanskrit. I have decided not to speak Sanskrit today. So this story is about truth. A soldier goes to a king and says, sir, I want your daughter in marriage. The soldier is very handsome. The king says, okay, fine, we are ready. But you do us one favor. We are sending you on one assignment. Complete it and come back. Thank you very much. And what was the assignment? You go and find truth. So the soldier goes out, goes to mosques, goes to temples, goes to synagogues, churches, meets saints, sages, wise men, does not find truth. At last one night rather, it was storm. And there, in the mountains, there was no place to hide. Raining hard. He had to take shelter in a cave. Very musty cave, dirty one. But he had to go in. To take the cave, deep inside he finds a light, a candle light. And in front of it, an old woman sitting. A hag-like looking old woman, matted with locked hair. Teeth jutting out. Eyes go within. The clothes were stinking, but the eyes were sparkling from within. And she was calling him, come, 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 come. And the young soldier goes. The call was irresistible. And throughout the night they have conversations. At the end of the night, when the storm had calmed down, the young man had realized that he had come to the end of the journey. He has found truth. Okay? So, he leaves, or he takes leave from the old woman. But he asks a question. He asks, now that I have found truth, and I'm sure of that, will you tell me, ma'am, what do I go and tell them about you? And the woman laughed and said, "Go and tell them that I am young and I am beautiful." Did the woman lie? Apparently, yes. She was ugly and she was old. But deep within the heart, deep within the mind, she was young and she was beautiful. So there are different layers of truth. I personally feel, and I ask my senior, respected alumnus, Professor Sanjoy Banerjee, can we think of teaching ethics to the students, ever values to the students, without referring to that great epic from India, Mahabharata? We didn't find much mention of that here. Mahabharata, I would just mention, without going into any details, if you're looking for layers of truth, if you're looking at different dimensions of truth, if you want to get lost into question what is true and what is false, start with Mahabharata and explore the characters. Not only the men, but also the women. And they will give you, enlightened observations on what really is truth, what is true. So what is enlightenment at the end of the day? Where is the light? There's a beautiful poem in English. It says, before enlightenment, mountains were mountains. Before enlightenment, mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers. During enlightenment, mountains are no more mountains, rivers are no more rivers. After enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains, rivers are once again rivers. What has changed is the way I am looking at the world. The way I am looking at the mountains has changed. The mountains remain what they are. They don't change. The external reality does not change. It is the internal dynamics, our mindset, our ways of looking at the world, which changes. In order to do that, friends, we have to be flexible. There are three personalities in us: the parent, the adult, and the child. I propose to you, in order to make this journey exciting, creative, enjoyable, entertaining, but still deep and profound, you have to ignite the child within you. Not the parent and the adult. The present education system has done enough to cater to the parent and the adult, but the child has been snubbed down somewhere. Pining for expression, still alive. If you want to make headway into spirituality, management, values in management, you have to ignite the child, which stands for curiosity, which stands for sense of wonder, which stands for creativity, which stands for joy. And unfortunately, these are lacking. In a school in South Calcutta, where admission is going on at the age of 3, there was a huge panel which was sitting, experts from all over the place. A friend of mine was there in the panel. And there was a psychiatrist, child psychiatrist, based in US, but an Indian, who has come and has been hired for the time being as an expert. Child walks in, 3-year-old. Everyone asks questions. The last question, the Brahmastra, the final one, comes from the psychiatrist. Again, I'll give you in English. Kawa kala kyun hota hai? Why is the crow black? The child says, smiling, uska baap bhi kala hai, maa bhi kali hai. His father is black, his mom is black. The psychiatrist came there to test something. She had to go to the toilet to wash and come back. We need to introduce alternative modes of learning, alternative methods and sources of learning if we want to make this journey creative. I won't go into details, I don't have time, but learning from nature, learning from silence. Can we learn from silence? What Maharaj Ji was giving an expression yesterday was learning from silence. Please give me a couple of minutes. India expertises on this, learning from silence. But I won't give an Indian example. My Western friends are here. Here's an example from New York. November 18, 1995. The great violinist, Itzhak Perelman, is performing in this is Lincoln Center, New York City. He's struck with polio. He's struck with polio from childhood. So he walks in like this every day with braces, sits down, picks up the violin. You know, it's an awesome sight. But when he starts playing, it's mesmerizing. But on that day, once he starts playing, something happened. There was a huge sound which went like gunfire across the room. What happened? One of the strings of the violin broke. People thought that he will get up, put on the braces, take up the clutch, go out, take another violin or get another string for this one. He did not. So what did he do? He waited for a moment, closed his eyes, signaled the conductor to begin again. Waited for a moment, closed his eyes. Closed his eyes. That's the key word. And signaled the conductor to begin again. The orchestra began, and it began from where he left off. And he played with such power, such passion and such purity that he had never played before. You know, I know that it is impossible to play a symphonic work in Western classical with 4 strings, without 4 strings. You know that, I know that, everyone knows that. But that night, Itzhak Perelman refused to know that, I know. And because of that, he made it. Sometimes we must refuse to know what we usually know. And he said, you know, to the audience, this is the message, you know, sometimes it is the artist's work to find out how much music you can still make with what we have left. With what we have left. So in this fast changing world, it is our duty to make music. First with all what we have, and when that's not available anymore, make music with what is left. Enough has been talked about from yesterday on, you know, Shankaracharyas and Buddhas and great people. I don't think we are one of them right now. Maybe we have the potential. So I will try to conclude with a beautiful short poem by Rabindranath. It says, the sun is setting in the western horizon. It looks at the world and asks, can you tell us who's going to show the light? The world is getting dark. I'm leaving. No one responds. The world is quiet. It's darkness. In a far corner, a little lamplight lights up. In a far corner, a little lamp lights up and says, sir, I will do the best that I can. We all have this little lamp inside us. We shall light this little lamp for us, for the world around. And when you light that little lamp inside you, the last message of values comes from within. He says, it is time to give. After all, values is about giving. Giving. There are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward, Khalil Gibran says. There are those who give with pain, and that pain is their baptism. You say, I will give, but only to the deserving. Take one deep breath. Deep breath. Deep breath. Deeper. 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 We have taken the breath. Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Now, if you choose not to give, what happens? All the best.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful deliberation on the subject matter. Now, I invite Professor Sanjoy Banerjee, Professor Emeritus, Amrita School of Business, India, for his speech on the topic role of teachers and educational institutions in the value-based higher education. Dr. Banerjee, who is the founder, director, dean of Amrita School of Business, is a perfect blend of industry academia. Professor Banerjee started his career as graduate engineering trainee at Salem Steel Plant and rose to the designation of Head of Department Industrial Engineering. Professor Sanjoy Banerjee held the post of Professor in Charge, National Management Program, MDI Gurgaon. He is also a visiting faculty to IIM Lucknow and IMI New Delhi. Beside this, he has been a founder of Gurgaon Quality Forum. He has published papers in journals of repute both nationally and internationally. He has designed and conducted numerous MDPs for companies like PC, TCL, ONGC. His another noteworthy achievement has been developing a computer model for project appraisal using simulation methodology. His primary areas of interest are project management, quality management, supply chain management, ERP and management, and business ethics. Sir, please bestow us with your valuable thoughts. Sir, please.